The red sun of Kepler 442b rose slowly over the mining camp, casting long shadows across the metal buildings and dirt paths. Lisa Monroe wiped the sweat from her face as she carried another heavy bucket of ore from the tunnel entrance. Her back ached from hours of digging, but she kept walking. She had learned not to show weakness here. The Zephyrians liked weakness. They fed on it. Around her, dozens of other human prisoners moved like ghosts between the mining shafts and processing plants. Their clothes were torn and dirty. Their faces were empty of hope. Most had been here for 2 years or more, ever since. The first contact war ended badly for Earth. Lisa had only been here for 8 months, but she remembered everything from before. She remembered being a sergeant in Earth's Special Forces. She remembered the taste of real coffee and the smell of rain on grass. She remembered having a name that meant something. Now she was just Prisoner 47 Alpha. Commander Vexthal stood on the raised platform near the main gate, watching the humans work. He was tall like all Zephyrians, nearly 8 feet, with skin that looked like blue crystal. His eyes glowed with a soft light that meant he was using his mind powers to read their thoughts. Lisa kept her mind blank. She thought about rocks and dirt and the weight of the bucket in her hands. Nothing else. Vexthal had been watching her more closely lately. She could feel his attention like cold fingers on her neck. He knew she was different from the others, but he didn't know how different. The other prisoners had given up. Lisa was just pretending to give up. Every day for 8 months, she had been learning. She learned the Zephyrian language by listening to the guards talk. She learned their daily routines by watching them. She learned about their technology by fixing their broken equipment when they forced her to. Most importantly, she learned their weaknesses. The Zephyrians thought humans were stupid animals. They thought human minds were too simple to understand complex things. This made them careless around their prisoners. They never imagined that Prisoner 47 Alpha was actually mapping every tunnel in the mine. They never guessed she was counting their weapons and memorizing their guard schedules. They certainly never suspected she was slowly gathering materials to make explosives from the mining chemicals. Lisa dumped her bucket of ore into the processing bin and walked back toward the tunnels. As she passed the children's area, she saw little Amy Collins sitting alone by the fence. The 7-year-old girl was sick again, coughing and shaking. The Zephyrians didn't waste medical supplies on human children. They said children who couldn't work didn't deserve to live. Lisa looked around carefully. 2 guards were talking near the main building. Commander Vexthal was reviewing reports on his tablet. No one was watching this corner of the camp. She reached into her pocket and pulled out half of her food ration from breakfast. It wasn't much, just a piece of protein bar and some dried fruit, but it was all she had. "Here," she whispered, kneeling down beside Amy. "Eat this." Amy looked up with big, scared eyes. "But they'll punish you if they find out." "They won't find out," Lisa said softly. "Just eat it quick." Amy took the food with shaking hands and ate it fast. A little color came back to her pale cheeks. "Thank you," Amy whispered. Lisa was about to stand up when she heard heavy footsteps behind her. Her blood turned cold. Well. Commander Vexthal's voice was like grinding glass. "What do we have here?" Lisa stood slowly and turned around. The tall alien commander was staring down at her with glowing blue eyes. Behind him stood 4 Zephyrian guards with plasma rifles. "Prisoner 47 Alpha," Vexthal said. "You were told that sharing food rations is forbidden?" "I wasn't sharing anything," Lisa said in a flat voice. Vexthal's eyes glowed brighter as he tried to read her mind. Lisa thought about rocks again. Gray rocks and brown dirt and the sound of pickaxes hitting stone. "Lying is also forbidden," Vexthal said. He looked down at little Amy, who was trying to hide behind Lisa's legs. "The child has food on her face." The guards raised their weapons. Other prisoners nearby stopped working and watched with frightened eyes. Everyone knew what happened to prisoners who broke the rules. Lisa felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. For months she had been careful. She had been patient. She had been planning and waiting for the right moment to strike back. But seeing little Amy about to be punished for her kindness made something snap inside her. Yes, Lisa said, clearly. I gave her my food. A murmur went through the watching prisoners. No one ever admitted to breaking rules. It was suicide. Bextel smiled with sharp teeth. Finally, some honesty from a human. How refreshing. He walked in a slow circle around Lisa, studying her like a scientist looking at an interesting bug. You know, he said, I've been watching. You, Prisoner 47 Alpha. You're different from the others. You still have fight in you. I can sense it even though you try to hide it from me. Lisa said nothing. She kept her face blank and her mind empty. The other humans here have learned their place, Vexthul continued. They understand that they exist only to serve the Zephyrian Empire. But you still think you're a soldier, don't you? He stopped in front of her and leaned down so his glowing eyes were level with hers. Let me help you understand something, human. Your war is over. Your planet is conquered. Your people are slaves. You are nothing but an animal in my zoo. Lisa looked straight into his alien eyes and said nothing. Vexthul straightened up and spoke loudly so all the prisoners could hear. Tomorrow at dawn, Prisoner 47 Alpha will be executed in the main courtyard. Let this remind all of you what happens to animals who forget their place. He turned and walked away, his guards following behind him. The other prisoners slowly went back to work, whispering among themselves. Lisa knelt down beside Amy again. The little girl was crying quietly. It's okay, Lisa whispered. Everything is going to be okay. But as she walked back to the tunnels, Lisa was already thinking. She had less than 24 hours to put her plan into action. All those months of careful preparation were about to pay off. Commander Vexthul thought he was executing a broken prisoner tomorrow morning. He had no idea he was about to wake up something much more dangerous. Something that had been sleeping in the tunnels, learning and planning and waiting for exactly this moment. Tomorrow, the Baba Yaga would be born. The night before her execution, Lisa Monroe did not sleep. She lay on her thin mattress in the prisoner barracks, listening to the sounds around her. Guards walked past the windows every 30 minutes. The night shift had 12 soldiers total. The main gate was locked but not heavily watched after midnight. Lisa had been counting and timing everything for months. Tonight, all that careful planning would finally matter. At 2 in the morning, when the guards were at their most tired, Lisa slipped out of her bunk. She moved like a shadow between the sleeping prisoners, careful not to wake anyone. The fewer people who knew about her escape, the better. She reached the loose floor panel near the back wall and lifted it quietly. Hidden underneath were the tools and supplies she had been gathering for months. Stolen wire cutters, a small hammer, chemicals from the mining operation that could make explosives, and most importantly, the remote detonator she had built from broken communication equipment. For weeks, Lisa had been weakening the support beams of the guard tower during her work shifts. She had been so careful that no one noticed the small cuts and scratches she made with her tools. To the Zephyrians, she was just another human prisoner moving rocks and dirt. They never imagined she was preparing to bring down their strongest defensive position. Lisa crawled through the small tunnel she had dug beneath the barracks. It came out near the mining equipment storage area, where she had hidden her main surprise. She had spent weeks moving small amounts of mining explosives from the work sites, hiding them in empty supply containers. The Zephyrians never counted their explosives carefully. They thought humans were too stupid to use them properly. Lisa reached the storage area and began setting up her charges. She placed them carefully around the base of the guard tower, connecting them with thin wires to her remote detonator. The explosives were small, but they would be enough to bring down the tower if she hit it at the right moment. As she worked, Lisa heard footsteps nearby. She froze, pressing herself against the wall of a storage container. A Zephyrian guard walked past, his rifle glowing softly in the darkness. He was checking the perimeter, but he didn't look carefully at the shadows where Lisa was hiding. When he was gone, Lisa finished her work. Everything was ready. She crawled back through her tunnel and returned to her bunk, just as the guard shift was changing. In 3 hours, they would come for her. In 3 hours, Commander Vexthul would try to make an example of her in front of all the other prisoners. Lisa closed her eyes and thought about her plan. She had only one chance to get this right. If she failed, she would die. But if she succeeded, she could give the other prisoners hope again. She thought about little Amy Collins, sleeping safely in the children's area. She thought about all the humans who had been broken by months or years in this place. She thought about Earth so far away, probably thinking all the prisoners were dead. Lisa Monroe had been a soldier once. Tomorrow, she would be a soldier again. Dawn came too quickly. Lisa woke to the sound of boots marching toward the barracks. The guards were coming for her just as Vexthul had promised. Prisoner 47 Alpha, the lead guard called out. Time to go. Lisa stood up slowly, making sure the small remote detonator was hidden in her pocket. Around her, the other prisoners watched with scared faces. Some of them were crying. They all thought they were about to watch her die. The guards put metal chains on her hands and feet. The chains were heavy and made walking difficult, but Lisa had expected this. She shuffled along between the guards as they led her out of the barracks and toward the main courtyard. The sun was just rising over the camp walls. All the prisoners were being forced to watch, standing in rows around the courtyard. Lisa could see little Amy in the front row, her face wet with tears. Commander Vexthul stood on a raised platform in the center of the courtyard. He was wearing his full military uniform, with medals and ribbons that showed his rank. His plasma rifle was charged and ready. Gather around, humans, Vexthul called out in his harsh voice. Today you will see what happens to those who think they can disobey the Zephyrian Empire. Lisa was forced to kneel in front of the platform. The chains made her movements slow and awkward, which was exactly what she wanted. She needed Vexthul to think she was helpless. Prisoner 47 Alpha, Vexthul said, raising his rifle. You broke our rules. You shared food with another prisoner. You showed defiance in the face of authority. For these crimes, you will be executed. Lisa looked up at him with calm eyes. I'm not sorry, she said clearly. Vexthul smiled his sharp-toothed smile. Good. I prefer honest criminals to lying ones. He aimed his rifle at Lisa's head. Around the courtyard, prisoners held their breath. Some covered their eyes. Others watched with the desperate hope that somehow, some way, this would not end the way they all expected. Lisa looked directly at Vexthul and waited for him to pull the trigger. Any last words, human? Vexthul asked. Lisa reached slowly into her pocket, pretending to look for something to say. Her fingers found the small remote detonator. Yes, she said. I have something to say. Vexthul leaned forward slightly, curious despite himself. Lisa pressed the button. The explosions were small, but perfectly placed. The guard tower's support beams, already weakened by months of Lisa's careful work, snapped like twigs. The entire tower tilted and crashed down into the courtyard with a thunderous roar. Dust and debris flew everywhere. Guards shouted in confusion. Prisoners screamed and ran for cover. In the chaos, Lisa rolled away from the platform just as Vexthul's rifle fired where her head had been a second before. Lisa didn't waste time. She ran toward the nearest building, her chains clanking with each step. Behind her, she could hear Vexthul screaming orders at his guards. Find her. Find that human now. Lisa reached the corner of the building and saw the entrance to Tunnel 7. She had memorized every tunnel in the mine during her months of work. She knew which ones connected to each other, which ones had multiple exits, and which ones were too narrow for the tall Zephyrians to follow. She dove into the tunnel entrance just as plasma bolts began flying past her head. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but Lisa had been working in these tunnels for months. She could navigate them by touch alone. Behind her, she heard guards trying to follow, but the tunnel was too small for them to move quickly, and they didn't know the layout like she did. Lisa crawled through the tunnel system, making her way to Tunnel 12. She had hidden supplies there weeks ago, preparing for exactly this moment. She found her cache, a stolen plasma pistol, a knife, and the key to unlock her chains. As soon as the chains were off, Lisa felt like herself again. She was no longer Prisoner 47 Alpha, shuffling along with empty eyes. She was Sergeant Lisa Monroe, Earth Special Forces, and she was back in the fight. She could hear guards moving through the tunnels, searching for her. Their voices echoed in the darkness as they called out to each other. They were confused and angry, but they were not organized. The collapse of the guard tower had broken their command structure. Lisa smiled grimly. That had been the point. She moved deeper into the tunnel system, toward the areas where she had prepared her real surprises. The escape from the courtyard had been just the beginning. Now came the hard part. Commander Vexthul thought he was hunting a scared prisoner trying to run away. He had no idea he was about to face a soldier who had been planning this war for 8 months. Lisa checked her stolen weapon and started moving toward her first target. The communication center was lightly guarded and she needed to send a message to the other prisoners. The rebellion was about to begin. In the distance, she could hear Vexthul's voice echoing through the tunnels, shouting orders at his guards. He sounded angry and frustrated. Lisa's smile grew wider. She had spent months letting him think he was in control. Now it was time to show him what a real soldier could do. Lisa moved through Tunnel 12 like a ghost. Her bare feet made no sound on the rocky floor. She had been working in these tunnels for months, and now they felt like home. Every turn, every loose rock, every place where the ceiling was low, she knew it all. Behind her, she could hear the Zephyrian guards getting closer. Their heavy boots echoed in the tunnels. They were talking loudly to each other, not caring who heard them. They thought they were hunting a scared animal. They were wrong. Lisa reached the junction where Tunnel 12 met Tunnel 5. She had been here many times during her work shifts. More importantly, she had been preparing this place for weeks. She pulled a small device from her pocket. It looked like a broken piece of mining equipment, but Lisa had turned it into something else. She pressed a button, and the device started making a soft beeping sound. Lisa placed it carefully on the floor and moved into Tunnel 5. She crawled to a hiding spot behind some rocks and waited. 5 minutes later, the first group of guards reached the junction. There were 4 of them, all carrying plasma rifles. Their blue crystal skin glowed softly in the darkness of the tunnel. "The human came this way," one guard said in their harsh language. "I can smell her fear." Lisa understood every word. She had learned their language months ago, but she never let them know. It was better when they thought she was too stupid to understand. The guards saw the beeping device on the floor. "What is that thing?" the second guard asked. "Some human tool," the first guard said. "Probably dropped it when she was running." He reached down to pick it up. Lisa smiled in the darkness and pressed another button on her remote control. The explosion was small but powerful. It brought down part of the tunnel ceiling, trapping the guards under tons of rock. Lisa had placed the explosive charge weeks ago, waiting for the right moment to use it. Now there were 4 fewer guards hunting her. Lisa moved deeper into the tunnel system. She had more surprises waiting, but she needed to be careful. Commander Vexthul would learn from this attack. He would send smaller groups next time, and they would be more careful. She reached Tunnel 8 and climbed up into a maintenance shaft. This led to the surface level, near the communication building. Lisa had been planning to take this building since her second week in the camp. The communication building was where the Zephyrians sent messages to their ships in space. It was also where they received orders from their commanders. If Lisa could control it, she could cut off the camp from outside help. She crawled through the maintenance shaft until she reached a grating that looked out into the building. 2 guards were inside, sitting at control panels. They looked nervous. The explosion in the tunnels had made everyone jumpy. Lisa watched and waited. She had learned patience during her months as a prisoner. Rushing would get her killed. After 20 minutes, one guard left to check on something outside. Lisa waited 5 more minutes to make sure he was really gone. Then she quietly removed the grating and dropped into the room. The remaining guard heard something and turned around. His eyes went wide when he saw Lisa standing behind him with a stolen plasma pistol. "Surprise," Lisa said in perfect Zephyrian. The guard reached for his weapon, but Lisa was faster. Her shot hit him in the chest, and he fell to the floor without making a sound. Lisa quickly moved to the communication panel. She had watched the guards use this equipment many times while pretending to clean the building. She knew how it worked. She typed a message in Zephyrian and sent it to all the guard posts in the camp. Emergency in Sector 7. All units respond immediately. There was no emergency in Sector 7, but the guards didn't know that. Lisa watched through the window as groups of soldiers ran toward the empty sector, leaving other areas undefended. While they were distracted, Lisa sent another message. This one went to the prisoner barracks. Stay strong. Help is coming. The Rabbit runs tonight. She knew the prisoners would understand. Rabbit had been her code name during the war. If any of her old squad mates were still alive in the camp, they would know she was fighting back. Lisa heard footsteps outside the building. The other guard was coming back. She quickly erased her messages from the system and climbed back into the maintenance shaft, replacing the grating just as the door opened. "Marcus?" the returning guard called out. "Where are you?" He found his partner's body and immediately sounded the alarm. But Lisa was already gone, moving through the maintenance shafts toward her next target. Commander Vexthul's voice echoed through the camp speakers. "Attention all units. The human prisoner has killed 2 guards and destroyed a patrol. She is armed and extremely dangerous. Find her and bring me her body." Lisa smiled as she crawled through the narrow shaft. Vexthul sounded angry and scared. Good. Scared enemies made mistakes. She reached the power station that supplied electricity to the camp. This was her biggest target yet. If she could shut down the power, the Zephyrians would lose their advantage in the tunnels. Their fancy equipment needed electricity to work. The power station was heavily guarded. Lisa counted 6 soldiers outside and probably more inside. She couldn't fight them all directly, but she didn't need to. She had been studying. The station's designed for weeks. The main power cable ran underground, connecting to the generators in the sub-level. Lisa knew exactly where to hit it. She crawled through the maintenance tunnels until she reached the power cable junction. The cables were thick and protected by metal covers, but Lisa had the right tools. She had stolen them from the engineering department weeks ago. It took her 30 minutes to set up the charges. She placed them carefully along the main power line, making sure they would cut electricity to the entire camp when they exploded. As she worked, Lisa heard voices above her. Guards were searching the area, getting closer to her position. She needed to finish quickly. She connected the last wire and activated the timer. She had 60 seconds to get away from the explosion. Lisa crawled as fast as she could through the tunnel. Behind her, she could hear guards entering the maintenance area. Someone shouted that they had found signs of her presence. The explosion came just as Lisa reached a safe distance. The lights went out all across the camp. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but it was much weaker than the main power. The Zephyrians had lost most of their electronic advantages. In the darkness, Lisa heard something that made her heart jump with joy. Other prisoners were shouting and cheering. Her message had reached them, and they were finding their courage again. More importantly, she heard familiar voices among the cheers, voices she recognized from her old military unit. "Jake Morrison, is that you?" Lisa whispered into her stolen communicator. "Lisa? Lisa Monroe?" The voice that came back was full of shock and hope. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Lisa said. "But I'm about to be very busy. Are you ready to fight?" "We've been ready for months," Jake replied. "We were just waiting for someone to start the war." Lisa looked out through a grating at the chaos in the camp. Guards were running everywhere, with flashlights trying to restore order. Commander Vexthul was screaming orders that no one could hear clearly over the noise. "Then let's give them a war they'll never forget," Lisa said. She had spent months learning to be invisible, learning to survive, learning every weakness the Zephyrians had. Now it was time to use all that knowledge. The hunt was about to become much more interesting. Lisa Monroe was no longer running from her enemies, she was hunting them. 3 days had passed since Lisa's escape, and the mining camp had become a war zone. The Zephyrians were losing control, and they knew it. Commander Vexthul stood in his command center, staring at reports of more attacks. 12 guards dead, 2 supply depots destroyed. the main communication array damaged beyond repair, and still no sign of the human who was causing all this chaos. "Sir," a young officer said nervously, "we have another problem. The human prisoners are becoming bold. They're refusing to work and starting fights with our guards." Vexthul slammed his fist on the table. How can one escaped prisoner cause so much trouble? He didn't understand humans at all. To the Zephyrian mind, when a leader was removed, the group should fall apart. But humans seemed to grow stronger when they had someone to follow, even if that someone was hiding in the tunnels. Lisa Monroe had become a symbol of hope for every prisoner in the camp. Deep in Tunnel 15, Lisa was meeting with the other survivors from her old military unit. Jake Morrison had found 3 more soldiers who had been hiding their identities among the prisoners. They called themselves the Ghost Squad now. "The Zephyrians are getting desperate," Jake reported. "They're bringing in more soldiers from their other camps. I heard them talking about something called Void Hunters." Lisa had heard that name before during the war. Void Hunters were special Zephyrian soldiers trained to hunt down dangerous enemies. They were faster and smarter than regular guards, and they had stronger mental powers. "How many?" Lisa asked. "At least 6, maybe more," Jake said. "They should arrive tomorrow." Lisa nodded. She had expected this. Her attacks were too successful for the Zephyrians to ignore. They would send their best hunters after her. That was fine. Lisa had been preparing for stronger enemies. "What's the plan?" asked Tony Rodriguez, another member of the Ghost Squad. Lisa pulled out a hand-drawn map of the camp. She had been working on it for months, marking every building, every tunnel, every weakness she could find. "We're going to give them something to hunt," she said. "But not what they expect." Lisa had been studying Zephyrian psychology as well as their technology. They were a proud species, confident in their abilities. They expected their enemies to fight like Zephyrians, direct and honorable. Humans fought differently. Humans used fear as a weapon. Over the next day, Lisa and the Ghost Squad prepared for the arrival of the Void Hunters. They set up new traps in the tunnels, but more importantly, they began a different kind of warfare. Lisa had learned about human myths and legends from her grandmother when she was a child. Stories about monsters in the dark, witches in the forest, and things that hunted evil people. The Zephyrians had no such stories. Their culture was too young, too confident. It was time to teach them about human nightmares. The Void Hunters arrived that evening. Lisa watched them from a hidden observation post she had built in the ventilation system. They were different from regular Zephyrian soldiers. Taller, with darker blue skin and eyes that glowed brighter. They moved like predators, confident and deadly. Their leader was a female named Sektar. Lisa could hear her talking to Commander Vexthul in the command center. "This human has embarrassed you long enough," Sektar said in their harsh language. "My hunters will end this quickly." "She's more dangerous than you think," Vexthul warned. "She's killed 15 of my guards and destroyed half our equipment." Sektar laughed. "Impossible. Humans are weak creatures. We will have her head by morning." Lisa smiled in the darkness. Confidence was a weakness she could use. That night, the psychological warfare began. Lisa had studied the camp's communication system during her months of pretending to clean the buildings. She knew how to access their internal speakers, their computer networks, even their personal communication devices. At midnight, every speaker in the camp began playing the same sound. It was a recording Lisa had made. Human children singing. A lullaby, but played backwards and mixed with the sounds of wind and creaking wood. The Zephyrians had never heard anything like it. The sound was alien to them, disturbing in ways they couldn't understand. The singing stopped after 10 minutes, but the psychological effect had begun. An hour later, guards on patrol began finding strange symbols carved into walls and doors. Lisa had created them using a combination of human letters and mathematical symbols, but arranged in patterns that looked mystical and threatening. The symbols meant nothing, but the Zephyrians didn't know that. They looked dangerous and mysterious, like some kind of human magic. At 3 in the morning, Lisa made her first direct contact with the Void Hunters. Sektar was leading a patrol through the tunnel system when all their lights suddenly went out. Lisa had tapped into the electrical system and cut power to that section. In the darkness, the Void Hunters heard sounds they couldn't identify. Footsteps that came from nowhere. Whispers in a language they didn't recognize. The scraping of metal on stone. Sektar used her mental powers to try to find the human's mind, but Lisa had learned to shield her thoughts. She appeared as nothing more than empty space in Sektar's psychic vision. "Show yourself, human," Sektar called out. "Face us with honor." Lisa's voice came from the darkness around them, seeming to come from everywhere at once. She had rigged speakers throughout this section of tunnel. "I am the darkness between the stars," Lisa said in perfect Zephyrian. "I am the whisper in your dreams. I am what hunts the hunters." The lights came back on, but Lisa was gone. The only sign she had been there was a new symbol carved into the wall, a crude drawing of a hut with bird legs, the home of the Baba. Yaga from human folklore. The Void Hunters tried to track her, but Lisa had prepared this section of tunnel carefully. False passages led nowhere. Hidden doors opened and closed by remote control. Mirrors reflected their lights back at them, creating the illusion of movement where there was none. For 6 hours, the hunters searched without finding anything but more symbols and more whispers in the dark. When dawn came, they returned to the surface frustrated and angry. Sektar had never failed to capture prey before, but this human was unlike anything she had ever hunted. "Report," Commander Vexthul demanded. "The human is using unknown technology," Sektar said. "Some kind of invisibility device, and she has helpers." We heard multiple voices. This was only partly true. Lisa was working alone most of the time, using recorded voices and clever tricks to seem like many people. "We will capture her today," Sektar promised. But Lisa had other plans. The psychological warfare was just the beginning. She had been letting the Void Hunters learn the wrong lessons about her capabilities. Now it was time to show them what a human soldier could really do. That afternoon, Lisa struck at the camp's water treatment plant. She didn't destroy it. That would hurt the human prisoners too. Instead, she contaminated it with a harmless chemical that turned the water bright red. To the Zephyrians, it looked like blood. She left a message written on the wall in their language. "The Baba Yaga is coming. For you, she knows where you sleep." Word of the bloodwater spread through the camp like wildfire. The regular guards were becoming nervous and jumpy. Some were refusing to go on patrol alone. Lisa watched from her hiding places as fear began to take hold of her enemies. They had always been so confident, so sure of their superiority over humans. Now they were learning what it felt like to be hunted by something they didn't understand. The legend of the Baba Yaga was being born in their minds, one terrifying incident at a time. 2 weeks had passed since the arrival of the Void Hunters, and the mining camp was falling apart. Half the guards refused to patrol alone. The other half jumped at shadows and shot at empty corners. The Zephyrians were hunting a ghost that struck without warning and vanished like smoke. Commander Vexthul had not slept in 3 days. Dark circles surrounded his glowing eyes as he stared at the latest reports. Another supply convoy attacked. 2 more guards found dead with strange symbols carved nearby. The water still ran red, and no one could fix it. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the prisoners are calling her the Baba Yaga now. They say she lives in the tunnels and punishes evil people." Vexthul had looked up human mythology. The Baba Yaga was a witch from their old stories, a creature that lived in the dark places and devoured those who crossed her path. It was just a story, but stories had power. His soldiers were afraid of a fairy tale. Lisa Monroe had become something more dangerous than a soldier or a terrorist. She had become a legend that lived in the minds of everyone in the camp. Sektar entered the command center, her blue skin pale with exhaustion. Even the elite Void Hunter looked beaten. "Still no success," she reported. "We found 3 more of her hiding places, but they were already empty. She leaves messages for us now. Always the same words. The Baba Yaga sees all." Vexthul turned to stare out the window at the camp. In the distance, he could see human prisoners working in the mines, but they weren't broken anymore. They sang as they worked. They smiled at each other. They had hope again. "We're losing control," he admitted quietly. That was when the final message arrived. Every screen in the command center suddenly showed the same image, a crude drawing of a hut with bird legs, walking through a forest. Below it, words appeared, in perfect Zephyrian script. "Commander Vexthul, you tried to execute me 2 weeks ago. You failed. Tonight the Baba Yaga comes for you. Come to the central courtyard at midnight. Come alone, or I will hunt down every one of your soldiers, one by one." The witch keeps her promises. Sektar read the message with growing anger. "It's a trap, obviously." "Of course it is," Vexthul said. "But what choice do I have? She's already won. My soldiers are terrified. The prisoners are rebelling. If I don't face her, I'll look weak. Then I'll come with you." "No." Vexthul stood up straighter, trying to find his old confidence. "She wants to face me alone. Perhaps if I kill her personally, my soldiers will remember that humans can die." At midnight, Vexthul walked into the central courtyard. It was the same place where he had tried to execute Lisa Monroe 2 weeks ago, the same place where his carefully ordered world had begun to fall apart. The courtyard was empty and silent. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the ground. Vexthul held his plasma rifle ready and waited. "I'm here, human," he called out. "Show yourself." A voice came from the darkness around him, seeming to echo from everywhere at once. "You tried to kill me in this place," Lisa said. "You wanted to make an example of me, to show the other prisoners what happens to those who resist." Vexthul spun around, trying to find where the voice was coming from. "I should have killed you months ago." "You couldn't kill me then," Lisa replied. "You can't kill me now. Do you know why? Because you're hiding like a coward?" Lisa stepped out of the shadows at the far end of the courtyard. She looked different now. Her hair was longer and wild. Her clothes were patched together from stolen Zephyrian gear and human rags. Strange symbols were painted on her face and arms. She looked exactly like the Baba Yaga from Human Nightmares. "I'm not hiding," Lisa said calmly. "I'm right here." Vexthul raised his rifle and fired. The plasma bolt should have killed her instantly, but Lisa was already moving. She rolled behind a piece of debris as more shots followed her. "You still don't understand," Lisa called out from cover. "You can't kill me because I'm not just Lisa Monroe anymore. I'm every human you've tortured. I'm every child you've starved. I'm every prisoner who died in your camps." She appeared on Vexthul's left side, moving faster than should have been possible. Her stolen plasma pistol fired twice. Vexthul's rifle exploded in his hands. "I'm the Baba Yaga now," Lisa said, standing over the fallen commander. "And the Baba Yaga always gets her revenge." Vexthul looked up at her with fear in his glowing eyes. For the first time, he understood what his prisoners had felt all these months. "The other prisoners," he gasped. "What about them?" Lisa smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "They're already free. My friends took over your transport ships while you were meeting with me. By now they're halfway to Earth with news of this place." In the distance, Vexthul could hear explosions and alarms. The rebellion had begun while he was distracted by his hunt for the Baba Yaga. "You played me," he whispered. "You taught me well," Lisa replied. "You taught me that sometimes to win, you have to become the monster your enemies fear most." She raised her weapon and looked down at the alien commander who had tried to break her spirit. "Tell your people about the Baba Yaga when you see them again," Lisa said. "Tell them that humans remember their stories, and their stories are coming for you." The last thing Vexthul heard was Lisa Monroe speaking into a communicator, her voice carrying across the empty camp. "This is the Baba Yaga. The camp is ours. Earth sends its regards."